Yale China Association connection derived from the fact that one of its board members was familiar with my work from some previous expeditions. So he had enough faith in my attention to larger, shall we say, and capturing a larger subject matter in a cohesive way. It's because of him and I guess the agreement of the board that, okay, let's send this guy Zetterstrom off to take some pictures. And they were very flexible. Didn't give me any instruction. I had freedom to move in and out of the tour setting, which was the context for my being transported around to about a dozen different cities, including Lhasa, Tibet. I can't remember all the cities, to tell you the truth, but Beijing, Shanghai, Changsha, Wuhan. I didn't have any expectations, quite honestly, except that it was going to be a novel experience, and I had the right attitude. Yeah. Skills and ingenuity and self-reliance of individuals was what I focused in on ultimately, as what you might call street portraits. And but these are not candid shots, so these are encounters where I would observe the subject and introduce myself in my primitive language skills, and I would be in close, really at arm's length. I was not shooting telephoto lenses, so dangling around my neck were 3 cameras. So I presented myself as the obvious photographer and not someone who was trying to sneak a shot on the run. And I therefore was able to engage with the subject on an individual level, one-on-one. So actually, when we were there, I wandered off up into the hills, basically above the community below, the village, and God, it was gorgeous. Just these gentle rolling hills, actually fairly steep, but all cultivated in tea. And, you know, encountered one woman up there picking tea all by herself, and, you know, she probably was a little nervous about this weirdo from the West, but I got a very nice portrait of her. Several of the artists and photographers working on the sidewalk environment or in the park, displaying their wares, which were either what you might call class portraits, as in graduating class, and then, or illustration art, which is to say portraits, let's say a pencil drawing, replicating exactly the photograph. So, or in the more, what's the term, fanciful world of portraiture, the image of the photographer whom I seated in his setting where the subject would normally sit, in this case, behind the wheel of a speedboat. Something so out of reach and useless, really, and exotic, but you could see in that the anticipation of SUVs on the streets of Beijing. In replying to your question about was I surprised at anything, probably everything. But when I examined the graphic arts in the culture, that became intriguing and was at an interesting stage. And in this case, the factory above the roof was a billboard lined with a frame of bamboo, quite a piece of craft. And that image was about the future and the importance of education and the diploma. But you know, so that, by contrast to the capitalist art that was emerging, that was the residue of the socialist art that preceded it. And so that was the tattered billboard versus the new, refreshed one. Yeah, that one probably stands out as being the most over the top. You know, she's cruising along in her convertible and she's advertising Warrior tires. And of course, she's staring at the artist, not the road ahead. It looked like not a Mad Ave product. When I came back and realized that those things had caught my eye, and there was human imagery in all of them, the socialist art, the commercial art, as well as the religious art. So that human imagery, in addition to the street portraits, is intermixed in the exhibition. So we're seeing the cultural instruction that was the background to the culture evident in the public art. So shooting individuals doing their thing in their environment. Yeah. So there's 3 layers of texture. The face, which is usually pretty amazing. The posture and gesture and action, and then the setting. And yeah, so I guess I have standards in my portraiture. Basically, the elements that are there are supposed to add up to the singularity of the image. The more texture, the better. But well, you know, Cornell Kappa, I think, is the guy who's credited with the phrase, if your pictures aren't any good, you got to get closer to your subject. And that's a good axiom, basically. Yeah, I don't even to this day, I don't have a long lens. By and large, I think I had the advantage of being a novel experience for them. Being seated for a portrait would have been a special occasion. So my approaching them on a common occasion on the street, I think brought a certain a delight and appreciation of their validity in what they were doing. Manual dexterity is evidence of a high mental accomplishment. It's not to be dismissed as mere manual labor. The degree of my admiration for their capacities in their chosen, if you could call it then a profession, I don't think you might, but I think it was sort of a sideline, was evident. And I think, you know, the wire basket that contained the harvest of eggs was an art object of extraordinary beauty, as was the, you know, tinsmith soldered watering cans and other little containers. All of those things spoke to a great texture in the culture, and as opposed to some extruded polymer plastic watering can. You know, in the field, you sometimes know you got that shot, and it's a winner for sure, because you are seeing it. And it's more like a dance. You actually, it's the steps, you go through the steps and they come and go, and then the dance is over, and either it's in the bag or not. In fact, you don't see anything for a month later. And then you rush to the dark room, and you go through that slow process of souping the negatives and hanging them up to dry, and then making contact sheets the next day. And in a sense is a very freed up way of working, because you simply are you're not dealing with, oh, I wish I got that shot. You're just going in there for the moment, and you're smart and astute and alert enough. That's what a good photographer does, basically. Seizes that moment. These photographs will hold a great deal of nostalgia for an era which, except in the impoverished rural agricultural countryside, represent, in a sense, a generational change that is probably as great as any in the history of China.